afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Getting In, a college coach conversation. If you feel like you haven't seen me in a while, well, you haven't seen me in a while. Somehow it's been more than a month since I have hosted the podcast, but I know that Ian and Sally have been doing a great job. It's not that I haven't been around, it's that I haven't been in a great space to actually record the podcast, because though many of you know that I dropped my son off at college a few weeks ago, what you probably don't know is that I also moved, and the place that I'm moving to is not yet ready. So I've been bouncing back and forth between Airbnbs. But I'm excited to be here today. And of course, we have a great show. I always say that, but it's always true. We're going to be updating you on the latest on the student loan forgiveness sort of path forward that the Biden administration announced about a week ago. And we're also going to be talking about how to make the most of Naviance. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about supplemental essays. So for those of you who are working on your Common Application, you know that there are some colleges that ask for supplemental essays. And joining us today, because we thought it would be really great to get the perspective of someone who's still working at admissions, is Becky Konowitz. She is the Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Santa Clara University. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining the show. I always think it's a great thing that though all of my colleagues and I are former admissions officers, it's always nice to have someone who's still in the field and really making some decisions around things like whether or not you're going to offer supplemental essays. So I guess my first question to you is really more general, and that is, why do colleges ask for these? You've already got your main Common App essay, so why supplemental additional essays?
Great question. I think universities ask these to express their individuality in the college admission process, but also to allow applicants to seek out theirs, right? So it's about that main college essay that the Common App may ask. They ask for 5 or 6 prompts, is written and sent to all colleges the students applying to. So the supplement essays are unique to a college, and therefore allow for that individuality for a college and the applicant. So part of this college application process is to gain insight to an applicant, to their interests, their voices, their perspectives, their ideas. So the supplement essays really allow for that space for a student to express who they are, how they may transform and grow, right, in the college process. So I think another reason a college asks for the supplemental essays is to have more context and writing abilities. You will write in college. And so it's another place where a student can demonstrate how to be concise, because the word limits are often shorter, how to critically think depending on the questions that are asked, but also really to see if they're ready for that college level writing with grammar, punctuation, vocabulary choice. Lastly, I would say many colleges probably use supplemental essays as a form of demonstrated interest. Has the student assessed if this is a college that is a good fit, and hear from their voice why they think it's a good fit for them. So Beth, you can see there's lots of different reasons for us adding them to our application process for a holistic review, but we think they're very valuable.
Yeah, I one thing, all of those things very much resonate with me and feel in line with how we thought about them when I was doing admissions, and how I know my colleagues have talked about the choices of supplemental essays and topics and things like that when they were doing admissions. But one thing in particular that resonates with me, because we are in the throes of this right now, is that, focus on, can the student write? Are they critical thinkers? Can they be concise? If I had $1 for every time I talk to a student about, be more straightforward, use fewer words. Why are you writing something in 20 words that you could say in 5? So I just want to say thank you, because you are saying what a lot of us do say to students. And I think the other big thing is, this again highlights, you can't leave this stuff to the last minute. If you're going to spend 4 weeks crafting your main essay and then think you're going to sit down and write a supplemental essay in a day in one draft, then there's going to be a disconnect, right? Typically between the quality of the writing. And actually, I'm curious if that's something, I know it's something I used to see when I was at Penn, and I would be curious if you find that notable when that happens
Yeah,
at Santa
we
Clara.
find it all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of focus on the main essay and then last minute submissions of the supplement, and that leads to the poor writing, not ability to hone and be concise. So completely agree.
Got it. Yeah. And so I guess you mentioned a lot of different reasons. Would all of those be accurate for why Santa Clara has the supplemental essays, or anything additional you would add about Santa Clara's choice for those?
Yeah, I absolutely everything I shared is on our list. I think I would emphasize that the main reason we really focus in on our questions is to celebrate our Jesuit Catholic identity. We really want to create a space where all are welcomed, religious diversity is explored, there's conversations about spirituality. But the Jesuits like to take action on social justice, climate justice, racial justice, the intersection of all of them. So coupled with a very dynamic location of Silicon Valley, where students get to, explore, have those vocations, bring the action into life in real world in our communities. We really spend a lot of time on our questions to reflect our community. And so it's less about I think for us, it's about trying to make sure the student, when they get to our supplement, says, this is Santa Clara. So as
Yeah.
I mentioned, the individuality, the uniqueness, we are trying to express that in the type of question we're asking. So I always tell students, you're trying to figure out fit in many different areas. Sometimes the questions on the supplements can help you in that way. So at Santa Clara, if you get energized and inspired to answer our questions, as we do to read them, then we're a good fit. And so I would encourage students to see and understand that about Santa Clara, and it's really reflected in our questions.
And also a great point that actually I could extrapolate out, which is that if you look at these supplemental questions for whether it's for Santa Clara or really any institution, and your reaction is, oh my God, I can't believe they're asking me that, or I have no idea how to answer this, or it just completely flummoxes you, it might be a sign that this is not the perfect fit. They don't always listen, but I think that's a really great point is, you're really highlighting special things about Santa Clara. And if those things don't resonate with you as a student, then the institution probably won't resonate with you. And better to find that out before you apply than before you actually apply, get in and attend and realize, ooh, I don't know if we are, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, compatible. Great. Exactly. All right. Well, why don't we dig in since we have you here? So, one of the things that we do on the podcast throughout the fall is we will look at supplemental questions for a bunch of different schools and kind of talk through how to think about it, how to approach them. And now we have right here with us the Dean of Admissions from Santa Clara. So, we would love to hear from you. I'm going to read the first one. And this one is, and I'm sure you could probably read it from memory, recite it from memory, but briefly describe what prompted you to apply to Santa Clara University based on what you know about SCU and our Jesuit mission to educate citizens and leaders of competence, conscience, and compassion. How do you envision your life at SCU and beyond? And you get a maximum of 200 words to tackle that question.
Yeah, and I think for us, what we're really trying to understand in an applicant's eyes, completing this answer in a concise, well-written format, is we really want to know, does the applicant know who we are? We point blank share our mission, right? We want to educate citizens and leaders to be competent, conscious, and compassion. And so critically analyzing that in a way saying, does this information for a student and a community, where do they see themselves taking that, right? So is this, college is a time of transition, growth, development, and we're saying this is our community. These are the values we aspire to. will you share with us how you see taking those forward? And, they may not have come from a Jesuit background or a Catholic background or a religious background at all in their education. And we're okay with that. We're saying, here's who we are. How would you like to take it forward? And so I think that's really what we're getting at, is really allowing that space. We're open to all. Some students, have had experience with spirituality and formation in secondary school, and others haven't. And so we're trying to say, okay, here's ours. Reflect
Right.
on it, and how do you see it influencing you in the future?
Yeah, and I love that. To me, this feels very, what I really like about it is I feel like it's very straightforward. You're not hiding anything. You're not asking a key portion of the question, which I'm not going to name names here, but there are definitely a couple of institutions out there who I don't believe are intentionally hiding their intent, but are doing it, not realizing that they're doing it. But I feel like it's really out here. And if you're not quite sure what you mean in the question, you can go to the website and probably dig in a little bit more and get a better sense for it. But it's pretty straightforward. So I appreciate that
Great
insight.
feedback for us.
Yeah, no, it is. Sometimes, honestly, I wish that some colleges would be open to feedback like that. I don't know that the feedback's always delivered in the best possible way. I think a
Right.
lot of times, counselors will be frustrated because they see their students struggling and they assume, well, why don't the colleges realize this? But because I was actually just looking, I'm going to be in NACAC next week, and one of the sessions is high school counselors presenting to colleges and sort of trying to help them understand these are the challenges we're facing, just so you understand. So as you set policy, be aware that this is an issue. And I do sometimes think like poorly worded supplemental essays are the kind of thing that people like to complain about online, but don't necessarily have an opportunity to have a dialogue and say, hey, this is really the underlying challenge here. If you could do X, that would go a huge way towards making that an easier hurdle for our students. So,
Yeah, and Beth, honestly, this question has evolved, and you reminded me of about 5 years ago when we did have a very healthy conversation with a group of high school counselors, and they shared, because the question evolved from, when you visited, how
yes,
did you feel? And we realized that was creating so much anxiety, because of course not everybody can visit. We get
right.
applications from around the country and the world, and we didn't realize that simple phrase was creating so much anxiety. And so we appreciate our counseling friends on the other side who are working with students, who sometimes nudge us and
Right.
let us evolve.
Yes. Did you realize that when you
Yes.
do this? Yes, it is a really great to have that dialogue, and it's certainly easier to have it with some than with others. But hopefully, places, NACAC, the national conference, things like that, provide at least a little bit of an opportunity to have those exchanges. So I love that you guys tweaked it. All right, let's go to the second question, because Santa Clara only asks two, and they're both relatively short. Also appreciate that. So here's the second question. At SCU, we push our students to be creative, be challenged, and be the solution. Think about an ethical dilemma that you care about that our society is currently facing. This can be something happening in your local community or more globally. How can an SCU education help you prepare for and address this challenge?
Yeah, great.
Tougher.
I think for us, every time I read this question, I get excited. We've had it for about 3 years now, and this, as you can imagine, going into the pandemic and coming out of it, this question gave us so much hope for the amazing students in our applicant pool, because really we are a community that likes to question, take action on, as I mentioned earlier, social, racial, and climate issues, and change and drive even the conversation around the intersectionality of all those challenges. And so, reviewing the supplement essays, this question has provided us the most inspiration. Our students today, in each cycle, they want this change. They have ideas. And so we've given them a space to share that with us. They also, I think it reflects to us that they're ready to jump into our community and join the programs that are addressing these, have the classroom discussions, do the research with a faculty member or a Silicon Valley company that's asking the same question, and address these. And so it's really, again, giving us insight to, one, they have a thought, which we know this generation will speak up, which is exciting, and then they will take action. And so we really see this question as a way to say, do they see Santa Clara as providing them that platform? We won't necessarily always have it all, but we will try. We're trying to create a community for those activists, for those leaders to question. And so this usually gives a lot of insight. A lot of students will also find things which we love about unique programs that match their interests and their passions. And some students, honestly, haven't been given a lot, have not thought about this portion of their interests going into college, right? They're so busy, so overwhelmed in many ways, but to have a moment to say, oh, I am listening. There are conversations that I'd like to continue in college. That is okay too. We're just saying you're going to have them here, and come join us. And yeah, this question, by hands down, our counseling, our readers have really enjoyed and really see strength in our applicant pool.
And I have to also give a shout out to the way that it's worded, which again, I love, because I have seen similar questions, but the way it's often worded is, what is the most important ethical dilemma facing our world right now? And if you want to see something throw students into a tizzy, it's that. I mean, who can say what is the most, right? My vision of that, which is what I talk to students about, right? Well, what I think is most important is going to be different than what you think is, which is going to be probably different than 50 people on the street. So it's really about what you think is important. And so I really like that you're not saying what is the most important. You're simply saying, what's something you care about? What is something you personally care about? And that's key. It has to be personal. Otherwise, you're not learning anything about the student, and the student's going to have less to say if it's not personally important to them.
Yeah, and I think we really also tried to hone in, this is very Jesuit of us as well, as a lack of a better term, is it's about the community or the globe, right? And so it can be something that's resonating with a student in their community that, is really a challenge, or is globally talked about. And so we really wanted to provide that space that a student doesn't have to feel overwhelmed that they have had to study it in school and read the latest New York Times. It's not about that at all. So we wanted to allow that space as well.
Awesome. Becky, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. This was really great, and I think certainly it's helpful from a broad perspective, whether Santa Clara is on a student's list or not, but certainly if it's on their list, even better. So thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Beth. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about this new student loan forgiveness program. So you definitely don't want to miss that. So we'll be back in just a minute.